public-private sector partnership and plans are at an advanced stage for a big housing. The Minister said the initiative is a public-private sector partnership and plans are at an advanced stage for a big housing project before the end of this year.
Will be 1,300 houses at Vineyard in St. Philip.
2 days later.
As of tomorrow's date effectively. I thank you for your attention, and I'd like to thank both the Honorable Dwight Sutherland for his service to the government, while at the same time looking forward to working with the Honorable Christopher Gibbs in this new portfolio. Thank you very much.
As being the voice of Jacob, while there was a different hidden hand of Esau at work infelicitously. I speculated even then that he would be sacrificed for the scandalous Hope Project, for which the entire cabinet ought to have taken collective responsibility. It remains a fact that the $60 million was voted and approved by the cabinet out of the Housing Credit Fund. Mr. Sutherland has been the hapless messenger who did the public lifting of heavy infelicity. Again, it was Mr. Sutherland's voice of Jacob that brought to Parliament that infamous land gift resolution of the public property at Gemmett's Lane to Afretsim Bank. Mr. Sutherland has become the government's hapless messenger of its failures in relation to its housing and lands program. He has been going around the country counting the construction of private houses while seeking to persuade Barbadians that the government is in some way responsible for these private enterprises. Mr. Sutherland's many failures have been the government's many failures. One well remembers a statement made by the Prime Minister after the 2022 election, in which a veiled threat was made to Mr. Sutherland as to the consequence of his expected failure to oversee the construction of 10,000 houses in 5 years. The abandoned houses at Poole St. John now stand as an unhappy testament to his government's many failures in housing. During my budget reply earlier this year, I again lamented Mr. Sutherland's invidious role and anticipated his sacrifice by the Prime Minister. As to his replacement, Mr. Sutherland and a few of his colleagues will now discover that the BLP is settling into its real identity. And in his time left, he will realize that the hierarchy in the BLP is less related to merit and more related to privilege. The political crisis is not Mr. Sutherland's alone. This entire government is in crisis, and the people must now patiently await their relief from the entire government. Good evening and welcome to another edition, September 9th, 2025 of BLP TV. This evening we are going to be looking at the second edition of the saga involving Mr. Dwight Sutherland, former Minister of Housing in Barbados. I paused because I was about to say dismissal. I think it was a dismissal. Most people in Barbados seem to understand that it was a dismissal. I'm not a prophet. It's just that one observes politics and one sees trajectories. And in my budget reply of 2024, I told Dwight Sutherland he's going to be fired. And I remember saying during the budget reply, I'm going to beg for you, meaning that I felt some compassion towards the young man. I observed that he was not high in the pecking order of the Barbados Labour Party government. I observed that Mr. Sutherland was being used as a pawn in this whole matter of hope and generally housing. And it wasn't any prophetic power. One could see Mr. Sutherland's place in the BLP hierarchy and that he was being used. I'm sorry, that is what it was. Again, I repeated that in my budget reply this year. I again told Mr. Sutherland that he was on the path to being dismissed. I do feel some compassion towards the young man. It is not that he is above reproach in any sense, but my whole view is that the entire government is responsible for housing. You see, when you talk hope in this country, it must be remembered that the cabinet, the entire cabinet, sat down and gave approval to the payment of $60 million from the Housing Credit Fund to not the Ministry of Housing, to a company called Hope, which was supposed to build houses for low-income people. We know what has happened to that. Low-income people have not quite benefited from the so-called housing trust in Barbados. And so we have seen the departure. I'm going to ask the panel if they believe that he was fired or if they really believe that he resigned. But you would remember also that last year, the Prime Minister in a defensive posture said that she is going to order an investigation into Hope. Of course, we haven't seen that. There has been no investigation. Nobody expected it. Do you investigate yourself? Do you sit as chairman of cabinet and give approval to $60 million to be paid to a private company and bypass the National Housing Corporation? Do you do that and then do you order an investigation? Do you investigate yourself? No, you don't. No, you can't. It is the cabinet of Barbados, again, that approved the payment of these monies to be sent on to a company called Hope. So young Sutherland was not acting alone, but of course, he became the face of the disaster that has been Hope in this country. That is my introduction, a fairly short one. We're sorry for starting late, but better late than never. We have an excellent panel here tonight to discuss young Sutherland's departure. To my far left, Miss Malissa Howard, our candidate for Christchurch West Central. Welcome, Malissa.
Thank you. Good night, everyone.
To my immediate left, the indefatigable Miss Felicia Dujon.
Good
Felicia
evening.
has been very busy today.
Yeah.
I think you traveled to Princess Margaret.
Yes.
I heard you on the radio this evening.
Yes.
Looking after the interests of children.
Children. Yes.
This government seems unable.
They seem
to
preoccupied.
avoid- Yes.
Too occupied.
Every year, the ritual of incompetence. These school children cannot go into schools that are prepared.
Correct.
And we talk about schools, we talk about the teachers, we talk about the union. But who are the real victims here? The children are the victims.
The children.
But tonight we are going to talk about another victim, a BLP victim. Dwight Sutherland. Welcome, Felicia.
Thank you. And good evening to our panelists and our audience.
Yeah. And to my immediate right, the distinguished Dr. Elvis Wickham. I was asking the doctor a few minutes ago if he minded me saying that his connection to St. George South, his practice is in St. George South. So he has a professional interest and a personal interest in St. George South. Always a pleasure to have you.
Pleasure to be here. Good night, Barbados.
Thank you very much. They say ladies first, but we are going to breach that rule and go to the doc first. And my first question, look, we have observed, we heard Dwight Sutherland 2 days before his departure. I'm going to say departure because I don't want to answer for you. But before his departure, he was boasting that he would be constructing these 1,300 houses somewhere in St. Philip Vineyard. And then 2 days later, here's the Prime Minister saying, after discussion, he agreed or he requested to be dismissed. Whatever word he used, he requested to depart. And if you look at that objectively, do you believe Dwight Sutherland resigned? As the Prime Minister says, and Prime Ministers are supposed to tell the truth to Barbadians, do you believe that he resigned? Or do you think he was fired?
Not at all. He was fired. He was fired. Asked to hand in his resignation papers. Probably sounds better for him. I mean, you mentioned some of them. The list of issues under that ministry over the last few years is very long. And I beg to differ that, from point you said he's a victim. Barbados is a victim.
Yes.
He's comfortable as a government minister, 18,000 gross a month. He's comfortable.
I wanted to pull that out of you.
Right? He's comfortable. He wasn't one of the senior ministers making over 22, almost 23,000 a month, but he's fairly comfortable. He's no victim.
He's no victim.
I strongly believe in principles and right or wrong. If you see something that was going wrong, collective responsibility goes to a particular point. But at some point, if you have some values and principles, you decide, look, I can no longer be a part of this.
Yeah.
So, you will go along with certain decisions because you're never going to have a scenario where everyone in a cabinet or in any committee agrees with every decision. But collective responsibility, you go along with certain things. But at some point, the time will come when you cannot go along with a particular decision. And because of the doctrine of collective responsibility, you have to step aside. He went along with a lot. I do not, for one, believe that whether it was the Hort debacle, the steel houses, the prefab houses from Guyana, he's not the Minister of Finance. He did not do that on his own.
Right.
He did not do that on his own. So he is no victim here at all. He was the poor guy that had to take the fall for what was an obvious debacle as a ministry, with the people of Barbados, the taxpayers, and those waiting on low-income housing being the true victims here. But after discussion, the Prime Minister gave herself away when she said after discussion.
Precisely.
After discussion.
She did that.
After discussion. That's what happens when you talk a lot and don't think much before you talk. Sometimes the truth slips out.
Melissa, you sound as if you want to go second. And we were going to save this lady's voice for a little bit. She was talking all day at lectures at university, then to the radio. Melissa, the people in Hollywood would ask, was he pushed or did he jump?
I would say he was pushed. Like Elvis said, they had many mishaps under this ministry. We had promises of 10,000 homes in 5 years. We haven't seen much of them. He promised 13 houses by the end of this year. And then he came the very next day, 2 days, and offered his resignation.
Quote unquote.
Quote unquote. But some of the mishaps on this ministry, we had the sale of Jamet's Lane to the Afrexim Bank. We had the sale of the whole town civic center. We have right now the pending sale of White Sands police station. We have the conversion of all the agricultural lands into housing. Promises to persons, from 20 years ago about rent to own programs, and they haven't received the title deeds for their homes. So we have many things going on in this ministry that aren't adding up. So I do believe that he was fired.
Thank you. The lady who spoke a lot today, insist that you speak to her more now. Did Dwight resign or was he fired?
I think upon reflection, I think the majority of times when we think about the actions of individuals, especially persons in the public space, we want to look at in terms of what would have caused him to resign. Why was he propelled to make such public statements as to what are the reasons why he wants to resign? And of course, if it's a personal reason, we do not want to be too much interference into his personal life. And again, that's the reason why the reason he gave the public that is because it's personal, and once you hint personal, then persons do not want to invade that sense of privacy. to the minister. But I think there's a deeper question that we need to ask in terms of leadership and what it takes for a minister to make certain types of decisions where human beings are involved, where human rights, fundamental human rights are involved. And I think what I have, based upon the report that we have read from the Auditor General's report a few months ago, basically 6 months ago, and I believe all Barbadians should, if the media has not printed parts of it, I think it's important that they should. And I think based upon the report that I read a few days ago, I think whether he was pushed or he was jumped, if I saw him, I probably would have pushed him. Because I would not believe,
Okay, go on.
as a citizen, we have the responsibility to protect the most vulnerable in our society. We have a responsibility to uphold human rights, and housing is a fundamental human right. And I believe the Prime Minister also knows that Barbados is signatory to a lot of treaties that deals with human rights. And the government told us that it would have had a human rights commission. I think the Prime Minister said it at her last budget, that you would have had a human rights commission that would deal with matters like of that nature. Housing is a fundamental human right, and we have to situate that conversation, that it's not only the finances that is involved, but the breach and violation of human rights. Housing is universal. It's UN sanctioned.
Clothing and shelter.
Shelter. It's basic, as basic and fundamental. And we have signed treaties that the government would provide safe and affordable houses for the most vulnerable in our societies. And when you see a minister or former minister or an MP of a particular constituency that's supposed to serve a constituency, and you can resign and then come on television and gloat about it, it tells you something about the character of that individual. It tells you about the ethics of that individual. It tells you that this individual is a shameless individual who does not care about the responsibility that he was charged with. And so I am directly saying that whether he was pushed or he was resigned, I think the most important thing that we have to consider is that that kind of character should never be in an environment where servitude to people should be allowed. And I think it's very important that we look at him to the point. I know that he feels that we're saying that he's a victim, but I think he's more of a villain. Because
I meant a victim within the context of the Barbados.
They're all villains. So, so I can't see them as victims. They're all villains because of what the infringement of rights of individuals, the breaches that they have done. And there are kinds of breaches, not only in housing, but the fundamental breaches that they have done to our citizens. And I think they need to have legal ramifications of what have happened. I think it's not something that we can just drop and say, well, this is the report and just let it go. I think there's no. I'm so sorry. I can't do that this evening.
Listening to you, Felicia, brings me to another question. The question of his demeanor. You probably saw it on TV. He's there by the shop, but he's hanging out with fellas.
Of course.
He's laughing.
Of course.
And somebody said his speech was not like your speech, composed. I'm not going to say anything. What about his demeanor that caught your attention? Was that significant? Who's going to take that?
I think it was very important when you saw.
There's a kind of indifference,
right? But yes, of course.
Don't really buy books. So they were obviously.
And it's okay that, I mean, we have no problems with rum shops or
no, not at all.
But the reality is that when we understand the kind of incompetence and the wasted of taxpayers' monies that could be have allocated other places, the disrespectful behaviors by those that's supposed to be ensuring that the rights of citizens are protected, and that they take care of the most vulnerable. And after such a scandal, that I'm going to see you outside a rum shop, I'm going to see you sitting and talking and laughing as if nothing, as if nothing, it does not resonate. And not only that, but there's no empathy, because there are families that were hoping that they would have transferred. And that's what we need to look at. Housing is another way of generational wealth. most people acquire wealth so that they can pass it on to generations, no matter how small it is. And I usually hear the older generation say that they don't mind if it's just their toe on that piece of land, but it's theirs.
Yes. Yes.
This is theirs. And so many families have been affected by the decision or the poor decision making of this individuals and this government. And then we can go to a bar and gloat. It's unacceptable. It's grossly inappropriate behavior.
Now, let us shift the focus from young Sutherland. Well, not young Sutherland.
He's not young.
Melissa is young. To the Prime Minister. We therefore don't believe that the Prime Minister told us the truth. Because I think we all think that she fired him. And Elvis, I'll come to you. Is a Prime Minister duty bound to speak fully as to the circumstances? You see, her statement was very short. And in as short as it was, it told us he asked to be relieved of his duties. We don't believe that. Now, as a Prime Minister, when a person leaves under whatever circumstances, whether voluntarily or by dismissal, does a Prime Minister have a public duty or a moral duty to disclose the full circumstances, unless it is something sensitive like illness, which you would not wish to inquire into? If it is incompetence, if he had done something, if there's some impropriety, is the public entitled to know this?
With the condition that you said, as a physician, you certainly wouldn't want private business exposed, doctor-patient confidentiality.
Well, he was out by the rum shop, so I don't know if he was medicated.
He might have been celebrating being free from cabinet.
Celebrating, but not medicated.
Not medicated. Because, as you know, cabinet is pretty much a one-man show. One opinion, one woman show. One woman show. Yes. The other cabinet is a one woman show. The opinions of others matter little. Morally, yes, I believe the Prime Minister is duty bound. You are a servant of the people. You ask the people to put you in that position so you can serve them. The people employ you. The people of the country, and I'm going to go back to this, pay you gross over $24,000 per month.
As high as that?
Yes, as high as that when you factor in various allowances. So you are duty bound to report to the public reasons for dismissal. Because it was a dismissal outside of, like I said, sensitive personal family business, etc. Because that is not the business of the public. I really didn't expect her to give us that information, what the reasons are, but I definitely believe she's obligated to, because I believe in general that politicians need to remember they're there in our system of government as servants of the people, not as lords over us. We employ you, we pay you, we pay you to do a job. And part of the requirement really, and this is where Barbadians, we have to demand this, ought to be a high level of honesty, accountability, sincerity. I very much believe in the definition of a lie, which says a lie is the intent to deceive. I remember speaking in Orange Hill, and I spoke of listening very carefully to what they say as well as what they don't say. You hear a lot from what is said as well as a lot of what is not said, where the intention to deceive is there. But I believe in accountability, honesty across the board, full stop, regardless of ministry. You're there service of the people. And if that is your intention, you are totally above board in your dealings and your interactions. You are totally above board, not an issue of interpretation. What is there to hide? If someone did something wrong and they're fired as a result, you state it. They did something wrong and they're fired. Full stop.
Melissa, it is all about trust then. I mean, the Prime Minister comes, she says what she says, and the country must live with that. You think as well, like the doctor, there's a duty to disclose fully, unless it's illness or something. You're in public service, you're serving the public is paying you. Let's discuss the duty to disclose and the resulting lack of trust if you just come and make this bland first statement and you're gone. And we're supposed to live with that. Are we supposed to live with that?
It seemed very dismissive, but I totally agree. Absolutely.
Dismissive?
Yeah,
I like
absolutely.
That
to whom much is
dismissive
given
of the public.
Of the Prime Minister to not give us an
Yeah,
explanation.
she was dismissive of the public.
Yeah, absolutely. But to whom much is given, much is expected.
Mhm.
And when we elect individuals to govern us,
That's Luke, right?
actually, this was a statement that the principal at my secondary school used to say almost every Monday.
That's from the book of Luke, or is it
I
Ephesians?
don't know.
I think it's Luke. We'll double check.
But to whom much is given, much is expected. So
mhm.
when we elect individuals to govern us,
Yes.
govern our public funds,
Yes.
watch over everything that we do, we expect them to do what is right by us, to be
Mhm.
truthful. This is a
Yes.
government that campaign on accountability
Yes.
and transparency. And we've had 3 other ministers that resigned.
Mhm.
And I do not think that the
Resign.
public fired. I do not think that the public has received a good explanation as to why any of these ministers resigned.
Yes.
We
Yes.
see Marcia Cadell, she resigned twice and she's still there.
She resigned twice.
She gave us an explanation, remember? She said when principals
Don't
don't
align.
align,
Yeah.
the minister must resign.
Yeah.
The beginning of a poetic career.
So we have a government that was not a government, but a prime minister who does not believe that she has to come to the people and
Mhm.
explain to us
Mhm.
what is really going on within the government.
Felicia, this is a prime minister who generally talks a lot. And this was one of the shortest speeches we've heard. The duty to disclose. Do you agree with Malissa and Elvis that she ought to have, favored the public with some sober, truthful explanation?
I don't even know how to answer that question.
We call that a
Um,
Well,
it's upon reflection. I think there are several perhaps reasons why she chose not to do that. Do so. We're seeing, as I said before, a pattern of behavior. We should not be alarmed or even in any way, because we have seen that kind of pattern of behavior. It's very repetitive. You're seeing that the prime minister tend to, in some way, protect the public. It's almost as if it's paternalism. So I'm the parent and I'm going to protect you over, there's certain things you may not want to hear. So I'm going to protect you over that. Not realizing that, these are citizens. They have the obligation to know. They have the right to know as well, because this is a minister that they entrusted. They voted this individual in. They expect transparency and accountability. Now, in the sense of accountability, I believe that what we have observed is that we have a government where ministers have done quite a number of questionable behaviors. And there's no sense of accountability. There's no sense of reprisals. There's no sense of anyone being held accountable censored for their behavior. And that it speaks volume again of the leadership. And if ministers believe that they can conduct themselves in any way that they choose to conduct themselves, and the prime minister can just come and say, well, he resigned and let's move on. Let me try and catch my flight early, or things of that nature. So it's all of these kinds of behaviors that we need to observe, that pattern of behavior, that there's no transparency, no accountability. It also speaks in terms of how the ministers or her cabinet ministers review or how they refer to the prime minister herself. Because if they're able to do that without any form of accountability, we can see what the Auditor General is saying. We're seeing all of those kinds of behaviors, unethical practices, all those breaches are happening, and no one is being held accountable. Then it tells us that they do not respect her authority. Because if I respect your authority, there are certain things I would not do.
Yes.
Under your leadership, comrade leader.
Well,
There's certain things I know. There's certain
They may have been acting on her instruction.
well, that too, but at the same time, as a citizen, as a poor citizen, I am looking at the leadership, and I'm expecting that the leader has some kind of influence over, from the leadership. And so, if you can have your cabinet ministers behaving ad hoc and doing all kinds of unethical practices in the public domain, and they can resign and then still go to the rum shop, it shows your leadership, your practices, and how, and it speaks a lot in terms of business ethics. What is your ethical principle as a leader that your ministers can behave in such a way and without any kind of conscious behavior as to how it will reflect on my leader. That I know that even as a spokesperson for education, I'm always mindful of not only the party, but also the leader. Will my leader accept my behavior in public
Yes.
and what I do? So it tells me a lot about the character of the leader as well, and how her cabinet ministers reflect on her conduct. Because if they know they can behave like that and the next few days she's on a flight out there, she's never in the country. So behavior,
Occasionally.
so it's okay that they can behave so, because they know she's going to leave very soon.
Yeah.
So everybody can behave in a particular, when she comes back, then we have to behave. It's like this, the saying, when the cat is gone, people do stuff.
You raised an interesting
So-
question.
Yeah, someone was saying it's Luke 12.
Luke 12.
Yeah, Luke 12.
Excellent. I should applaud myself. Well, in this country, my Bible recollections are
Good.
better. Yeah. This gentleman here preaches. You don't mind me saying that?
No,
Sometimes
that's
it is. I wanted to take us back to a promise that the government made when first in office. I think the Prime Minister said they were doing these post-cabinet briefings. They're going to come to the public and say, oh, we discussed X and Y today.
She
You
here.
remember that?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. They haven't been done. You remember post-cabinet briefings? You remember them
They
coming
have
out
had
onto
a
the
few.
balcony? They've had a few.
They've had a few. They've had a few.
But have they stopped? Have they been forgotten?
I mean, we would have expected more.
Yes.
How
How many you recall?
I recall about 2 or 3
Two or
this
three.
year.
I do too.
They may very well have been more, but they certainly
This
do not
year?
happen. Yes, this year. They certainly
Okay.
do not happen after every cabinet meeting.
Mhm.
We have, and this is the point I want to make,
Yes.
we cherry pick from the progressive nations of the world things that suit us. And I use that expression because it's one that we have heard from this government.
Mhm.
The progressive nations of the world, and Barbados, is trying to be like, wants to be like the progressive nations of the world. The progressive nations of the world demand and do get a much higher level of accountability
Yes.
from their
Yes.
elected officials than
That's
we
a
do
convention.
here.
That's a
It
convention.
is. I mean,
Unless you
the
give a
things that
you're gone.
ministers and representatives, congressmen, and so on resign for, guys over here, ladies,
Saunter off to the rum
and-
shop and
Yeah.
yeah, big deal. British Deputy Prime Minister resigned recently over a matter that in Barbados, nothing would have happened. So, and that is something, that I certainly believe as a party that we can commit ourselves to that, a higher level of accountability where it is not just talk.
Right.
It's not just talk, because
Action.
persons have so much cynicism when it comes to politicians. They all tell you what they believe you want to hear,
Yes.
just so they can get your vote, win an election. And when they get in to do like the others that went just before them,
Business
more of
as
the
usual.
same. We still wait for integrity legislation.
Yeah.
Not really, because we don't expect it. But that we say to persons, this is what we believe in, and we hold ourselves to that. We hold ourselves to that as a party. But they clearly cherry pick what suits them from the progressive nations of the world. The level of accountability is way below what the progressive nations
Mhm.
of the world have. Where here ministers, as Felicia said, can do what they will when they will. And I do believe, yes, they reflect their leader. They reflect their leader. So that it is not a surprise when we see these actions taking place. The rum shop behavior was bad optics.
Melissa,
Mhm.
do you think that the public would want to hear post-cabinet briefings from time to time?
Yes, absolutely. The public would like to hear post-cabinet briefings, but let's be frank.
Mhm.
We have a prime minister who is only a bearer of good news, and there are a lot of bad things happening in
Yes.
Barbados.
Yes.
So I'm assuming that these discussions, what's coming up from these discussions, are things that the prime minister will want to relay to the public.
Mhm.
We look at crime.
Yeah.
Crime is spiraling
Horrific.
right now.
Yeah. Nothing good to report on
Yeah,
that.
nothing good. Every 2 weeks we are seeing a murder.
Mhm.
Sometimes 3 in a week.
Yes.
We have high cost of living. People going to the supermarket, they can't afford to buy anything in the supermarket. All of our social infrastructures, social services
Mhm.
are in a bad are in bad condition.
Mhm.
If you look at the hospital, person going to A&E, they can't get in and out of the A&E within 4 days. So there's nothing good that this prime minister can report. So she's not going to come to the public and tell us what's going on at cabinet meetings.
Felicia, you like the idea of post-cabinet briefings? Is this something you think the public would find appealing? I mean, obviously, you're not going to give the intricate details, but would the citizen feel better if, not every cabinet meeting, but perhaps once every 2 weeks or once a month, they can give a summary of what the government is dealing with, so that the public feels a sense of confidence in their government?
I
The
do.
absence of these briefings, what has it done to public confidence in the cabinet, in the government?
It seems that the government is isolated from the people. If you're not communicating effectively with the people, you're not briefing the individuals, you're not briefing your citizens, then citizens feels that you're working in isolation. And that is one of the reasons. And perhaps that's a very good question, because it's perhaps the reason, it's perhaps one of the reasons why the government is working in such a way that it's not reaching the people. We speak of cost of living, we speak of housing, we speak of health, we speak of
all unaddressed.
education, all of those ministries, energy. And what we're seeing, there's a disconnection between the public and the state. And so perhaps if we had those briefings, the public can say, well, I think you can do this better. I think you can, and people have that dialogue, with citizens, because we're not, as I said before, it seems as if that paternalism kind of portray of government, that I'm the parent and you're the children and we do whatever we want to do. If you're not having that constant dialogue with citizens, how do you know the policies that you're implementing, how does it influence or impact on the lives of individuals? How do you know in terms of health care? How do you know in terms of education? For instance, let's look at education. All of these policies or rules that are recently being passed on, how do you know how it's affecting individuals, the children, the teachers, the parents? How do you know that? How do you know? So you're making policies and rules and legislation in isolation. So it does not reach the people. And then we wonder why people feel disinterested in politics or in governance, because you're not reaching the people. You're not going out there. The only time that they reach out to citizens is when it's a fete. It's something merrymaking. That's when they reach out, when, they just want to show the numbers. Or we had a glorious time here and we did this and we did that. But when it comes to the basics, we don't see the government having that constant dialogue with citizens.
Their idea of dialogue, and I've been hearing this a lot recently, when they've been recalling legislation, some of their psychopaths on social media will say, oh, that shows the government has an inclination to engage. Because when they have registered failure, that they come and say, okay, we're going to withdraw it and we're going to do it differently. And that's their idea of engagement with the public. This, your view.
On that point, well, the number of pieces of legislation that have reached the floor of Parliament deeply flawed is concerning.
Yes.
It's concerning.
Yeah. And let me remind you of the process. It goes to cabinet.
Yes.
And unless everybody in there is sleeping, they have the right theory to discuss it. And then it is signed off by the AG and comes to Parliament. So let us remind the public of that process.
With a certificate of its readiness for Parliament discussion. Yet, so many deeply flawed pieces of legislation have reached Parliament. So many pieces of legislation that clearly reflect a lack of engagement with the public. So the public then, yes, will keep a lot of noise, whether it be the wiretapping, whether it be the TIN, whether it be the cybercrime bill that reached Parliament without serious consultation with the people. The areas of concern, had they been discussed with the public would have told them, yeah, we have deep concerns about these, and you exist not to exert your will on the people, but more a bit of the people's will on you with regards to certain matters. So, I do not see a scenario where Barbadians en masse said we're okay with 70%, 25%, 20%, in short order. It certainly isn't going to alleviate crime. Why is that a signature piece of legislation as far as crime fighting? but it reflects a lack of engagement with the public, the disconnect. So when they're caught red-handed, yes, we listen. So
Yeah,
we will withdraw. We will give another 3 months and another 3 months and another chunk of months, because even then they're still not listening to people. They're still not listening to people.
Basically, they're organizing their incompetence. Melissa.
That's such a diplomatic way of putting it. Organizing their incompetence.
Yeah. And isn't it ironic that all of this engagement, this failure to engage the public, and this government has something called Ideas Forum. Not Regather. What's the other one they do? Parish Speaks.
Yeah.
Why don't they engage there? You've ever seen one of them? The Parish Speaks?
Yeah, I have in person and online.
Your impression?
I was told that they are staged actually. That they would actually tell the individuals what questions to ask.
I can tell you that for a fact.
And they approve what they're going to answer. So it's not engagement, it's basically a play, a stage.
Yes.
Yeah. So we've had many legislation that has gone that was sent to the House and the Senate that was pulled back. We had the cybercrime bill. We had the integrity in public life that has been passed, but it hasn't been proclaimed as yet.
Nothing.
We've had the child protection bill. We've had issues with the tent law.
Yeah.
And the recent one, which is the communications.
Oh yeah.
Intersection and communications bill.
Let's call it what it is, phone tapping.
Yeah, phone tapping.
Listening then to your conversations. Your candidate, they probably hear listening to you. Right?
Yeah, definitely. And it went to the House first. You debated it. They had many issues.
Yeah.
It went to the Senate. Even when after it was debated in the Senate, they still had errors, and they still sent it back to the House. And you know, when it got to the House, you saw errors in it as well.
Okay.
I remember when Liz Thompson was in the Senate, when she was debating, in the middle of her presentation, she actually said that this government is a reactive government. I don't know if it slipped out, but yeah, she said it. It's a reactive government.
One that was Spanish probably wouldn't get it now.
So out of her own mouth, she said that this government is a reactive government. So with all the Paris Speaks, with all the regatherings, with all the gimmicks, they still aren't engaging the public.
Felicia, I want to come back to the housing issue and hope in particular. Now, it is acknowledged that Mr. Sutherland has failed badly. Is this Mr. Sutherland's failure alone, or would you want Barbadians to ask the entire government to take collective responsibility for this man's obvious failures? Is it his? In other words, is this Sutherland's failure alone, or is this the government's failure?
Just told you I'll push the man you asked.
Yeah, you would. It is his failure.
I think. Of course. I visited some of the housing locations.
Did you?
And I think it's appalling. What
you went to pool?
I did.
John?
I did.
With the grass
and I saw
roofless thing.
It's always good to see what government is doing with my money, with taxpayers' money. And it's important that, I mean, when you read a document, you don't really visualize what is happening until you see what is happening. And I'm sure the people in St. John and St. George would see exactly, they have to deal with that every day. They can see what taxpayers' monies and the misallocations of funds, mismanagement of funds, the breaches in structural and planning and everything else that came with it. And I think the minister, your mandate is to have oversight of all projects. So the buck stops at you. And we've seen that quite a lot with a number of those ministers, that anytime something does not happen the way that they should, they blame everyone else. They blame the contractors, they blame planning, they even blame citizens, that you are the one who applied for housing 20 years ago. Why are you still applying? You know we can't build the houses anyway. So they blame everyone except place the responsibility. You are the one responsible. You're the one being paid to do the job. You told us, you took an oath in Parliament that you will stand up and and represent the people and do right by the people. And so, yes, the minister, the former minister, has to take responsibility for his oversight and his authority of those projects, because it fell under his
So he's
portfolio.
no victim.
I just said he's not a victim. He could never be a victim because
I was being provocative. Not a
he's
victim.
he spent years recognized, unless he had no idea what the ministry was doing, unless he didn't understand what was happening, unless the PS didn't share with him what was happening. But we know that our civil servants work very hard. So we know that every document that goes to the minister's desk, that he has to read it, he has to sign it. And so when you go through the document and you see the number of breaches that took place from various angles and the amount of money that was spent through those, I think it speaks, as I said before, at the end of this conversation, I believe that they should have legal ramifications on this matter. He has to be held legally for what has occurred. It cannot be a situation where someone who had the responsibility, where 60 million plus more, where persons applied for that housing, citizens are still awaiting in some cases, and nothing happens about it. I think it's so much so that we can speak about the ethical concerns, the moral concerns. Was it right? Was it wrong? Is he a victim? Is he a villain? I believe there's also the legal component of it. He has to be, because minister's responsibility is a legal component. There's a legal ramification of it. And there are penalties for it. And I think we need to look at the legal component of what the duties of a minister, and when the minister's duties have been breached, then what are the consequences of it? If he's not answerable, then who else? Who else?
Now, you ever felt that the Prime Minister seriously intended to have this matter investigated?
Not at all.
You never thought so?
No. They say a promise is a comfort to a fool, and I may not be the smartest person in the world, but I'm not a fool. I never expected that she wanted it investigated. I mean, the Auditor General.
Why did she say that? To appease people?
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell us what we want to hear.
Tell people what
you want to hear. And you know, Melissa, how much? 18 months later? Nothing.
This was since
2024
February budget.
2024, 18 months later, no investigation. In fact, when it comes to the PAC under my chairmanship, the government ministers blocked it. The government minister said no, and I'm going to tell you the truth. I saw you look at the camera last week. I'm going to look at the camera this week. When it came to the PAC, the government ministers said no, it is not a priority, and they wanted it suspended in favor of some investigation, some old investigation.
In Barbados Water Authority?
No, either Water Authority or Transport Board. Some investigation that could not be carried on because it had gone to court. And here was hope with the Auditor General's report right for investigation.
And it was not important.
And the people, some of them were senators, some of them were MPs, and came in there and said, they have the right to determine what is on the agenda. I said, no, I want this on the agenda. We're going to do this next. And the report comes out, it's blocked. And here's the Prime Minister a few months earlier saying, oh, I'm going to have it investigated. And 18 months later, Barbadians are waiting for an investigation. What are we supposed to do, Felicia? What are we supposed to do?
I think
if the Prime Minister says, I'm going to investigate it, there has been no investigation. Can we trust the Prime Minister and the government?
You're the attorney.
I was going to say, you're the one into ethics.
I was going to say that I believe at this point, the applicants of those projects need to file a suit. I think the applicants need to find legal representation on this matter, because if the government is telling you that you'll investigate and they have not after 18 months, you're an applicant.
Yes.
And I think they should have some legal intervention on this matter. As I said before, it's one thing to talk about the ethics and whether someone, whatever. I mean, it's good to talk about a leader being ethical and being moral and being good and representing the people and being trustworthy and being honest and truthful. Yeah, that's good. But I believe a state, a government is also a legal body. And I think the citizens, I believe applicants And if they're hearing me this evening, I think the applicants that applied for those housing and have not received any kind of remedy to that situation, and now they have all
Legal
the,
recourse.
they have
Should take
all
legal
the
recourse.
evidence
Yes,
that they need.
Precisely.
They have all the evidence that they need, that they applied for housing, and this is what the minister with his government did.
Mhm.
So if they need the booklet, I can make more copies. And then they can find, I think it's important that we find legal representation on this matter.
No, Melissa, when I brought this to the PAC, Public
Mhm.
Accounts Committee, I never expected them to find Sutherland guilty. I wanted it publicized. I wanted
Mhm.
judgment to be made by the public.
But public.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but somebody had a bright idea in 2003, I think, to structure a Public Accounts Committee with members of the cabinet.
Yeah.
That's futile.
Mhm.
You think that we should have a PAC with members of a cabinet that participated in the decision. The public finds them guilty. We
Mhm.
bring it to the PAC, and the same members of the cabinet will come there and pretend that they can sit in judgment.
No.
Something is wrong with the Public Accounts Committee Act.
Yes, it needs restructuring.
Well, let us tell the public. I mean, who could we have on this Public Accounts Committee? I know it's a difficult question,
Mhm.
and I throw this at you at the deep end,
We
but certainly not cabinet ministers.
No, we should have individuals independent of the sitting government.
Right.
Maybe, like you suggested, retired judges, persons that were high up in public service,
Yeah.
lawyers,
Yeah.
senior ones, persons that can
Persons from
actually,
the church,
yeah,
faith-based organizations,
correct,
people
religious
who sit in positions of public trust.
persons that you deem honorable. Yeah.
You're going nice. Don't worry. I'm giving legal guidance.
Persons that you deem honorable. This is like asking someone convicted of murder
Mhm.
to sit on their own jury
Yes.
or to be a judge in their own case.
Yes.
It's clear conflict of
Yes,
interest.
yes.
So
You're
so you're-
talking good natural justice, so you don't even know.
Yeah.
so the how it is set up, it clearly needs to be looked at. And we need to come up with a new way that the Public Accounts Committee can work. We saw how frustrated Joseph Adderley
Oh yes.
was
Oh
when he
yes.
previously
Yes.
correct, and you're having the same yeah.
Well,
So
I go into the public.
mhm.
That's
But
where I go.
if the public can go and read the Auditor General report if they want
offered
to,
by Felicia here.
yes, it's online, and some of the findings that the government probably didn't want you to find out. You had 60 million, like you said, from the housing credit fund that was used. We had 37 million additional using precast instead
Yes.
of the traditional blocks.
In fact, now you're on to that.
Mhm.
We keep talking about this 60 million at Lancaster and Pool and so on. Give us the list of what I call infelicities. 37 million where?
37 million additional
Mhm.
monies that
Mhm.
was used. If they had used the traditional block method of building, it would cost 37 million less.
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 Yes, the Auditor General say that.
Yes. So there's wastage.
Wastage.
And if you
know,
go ahead,
the
go
chap
ahead.
who just came in,
Uh-huh.
what's his name? Gibbs.
Give
Gibbs said he's there to stop wastage.
Well, he
So
knows.
is condemning
and
Sutherland.
efficiency.
You laugh.
He did.
Yeah,
He
so
did say that.
there was no land ownership either.
Mhm.
They
Yeah,
they wanted to build on land that they did not own.
They didn't have
In
rights to
Barbados,
build.
we have a saying, put wall house on right land. The government, see, they didn't know that.
Correct.
I had to stop.
And then some of the houses that were earmarked for the whole project
Mhm.
were then transferred to private companies. These houses that were built in Atlantic Breeze, in
Yes.
Christchurch, this was a spot that was earmarked for the whole project. And then it turned up being a project that was done by a private company.
So what happened to NHC?
We do
That
not
served
know.
this country for 60 plus years and served well. And all of a sudden, this government comes along and has the bright idea to hand what is supposed to be public housing down to a private company. If you hand it to a private company, you're talking profit.
Mhm.
Public companies are not in the business of profit. Public companies are in the business of delivery of a service. But here you hand it to a private company. What happens? Profit motive comes alive.
Profit motive and what goes along with that.
Greed.
Greed. I'll say it.
You sure you want to say it?
questionable campaign financing. Yeah,
Mhm.
I'll put it like that.
Yeah.
Questionable campaign
Yes.
financing.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Questionable campaign financing. You know, let's not forget there was some prefab wooden houses from Guyana.
From Guyana.
Yeah,
Yes.
that
Mhm.
that were also brought to Barbados, where your bolts were missing.
Mhm.
Mhm.
What happened to our local guys? They can't
That's right.
build anymore.
That's right.
You know, we
I
have
mean, we have
very
a
skilled
tradition,
builders.
yeah.
I worked with both at home and office. We have extremely skilled builders, and provided there's proper vetting, because you
Mhm.
must do proper vetting. I believe we should look to empower and give work to our local guys as much as is possible. You know,
I want to ask about the role of the NHC. Because under this government, it seems that the NHC's role has been diminished in favor of private entities. The panel has a view on that. Okay, you wake up
Mhm.
someday soon and you're sitting in government. Would you opt for NHC, or would you go after a private builder to build public housing? And as I
NHC.
say, the motive is not profit.
It's not,
Yeah.
and it shouldn't be
It
profit.
should not. That's
You
the-
you're
that's-
serving
that's
people,
not-
and I think that's one of the reasons why the public should be more alarmed is that we're seeing the private entities are building more houses than the government, and
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's they're building houses that should be serving citizens of a particular income. And if when you see that, it tells you there is a very clear conflict of interest, because the government's supposed to be doing that kind of work. Also, the NSC is a regulatory body, so it will have checks and balances more often than private entities. And so it tells you that there's a shift in the government, more focus on profit than anything else. And if that is happening, then the public should have a say. I think it's about time that the public begin to become more aware, more vigilant
Yes.
as to what the
policy
government
and
it's
philosophy.
yes, and what the government is doing. It's becoming more capitalist in its approach,
Precisely,
and not looking to deal with the social aspects of its citizens, the needs of its citizens. And I think that's very important, that we need to see why the government is doing that. What is the change or the shift in the government's approach to providing those kinds of intervention for its citizens? And I think we need to take a closer look at what is happening.
Yes, at these the approaches.
The private
Yes,
entities.
Because Melissa, when the private entity is exclusively involved, the prices
Go up.
escape.
Yes.
yes.
The average person.
Yeah, so persons in a lower income bracket, they're actually priced out of the opportunity to own a house.
Precisely.
They can't afford a mortgage.
Correct.
Initially, Hope was supposed to be catered to individuals earning less than, let's say, $3,000 or $4,000.
I think that's what they say.
Yes.
And when these individuals went to the financial institutions to get a mortgage, they did not qualify. So, and then after that, the bracket went from 4,000 to 6,000. So if you couldn't qualify,
From 4 to 6.
if you couldn't qualify for a loan for a house within a 4,000 bracket, how can you qualify for something higher? So you're seeing individuals from a low income bracket being priced out of housing. NHC, the mandate of NHC was to provide affordable housing for persons who could not afford it.
Yes.
You had programs before where persons were paying $50 a week for rent in the housing schemes.
45.
Yeah. And now you're seeing persons in these not similar situations paying like $500 or $600 a
Really?
month. Yeah, for these
not that
homes.
high.
Yeah. So right now you're seeing, I don't want to say poor people, but you're seeing persons in a lower income bracket not being able to afford housing in Barbados.
So what's happening?
I don't know. What are you going to do?
I had a question here then, which flows naturally from what you've said. And I've included middle class Barbadians, because I'm hearing middle class Barbadians complain as well. The question I had written here: have middle class and working class Barbadians had fair access to affordable housing? Fair access. Is it fair, or do they have to pay through their nostrils? The average middle or working class Barbadian, can he or she feel that he has fair access, that he can go out into the marketplace tomorrow and find affordable housing?
No, I would say that's not the case, primarily because with the cost of living being so high,
Yes.
you know, disposable income is quite little now. When financial institutions assess individuals for qualification for a mortgage, you know,
But these are private institutions.
yes,
Yeah.
private institutions, they will be looking at obligations. You know, you spend X amount on fuel, on groceries, on utilities, existing debt obligations, etc., and what is left. You know, and they have particular ratio that they use. Would this person have enough to live comfortably if we give them the mortgage that they're looking for? And quite often persons will not qualify because the income that remains after meeting obligations is not adequate. Or if they did qualify the individuals for the mortgage, they will not be able to eat. And you can't have a scenario. You have a scenario like that. So the middle class, unfortunately, has become the working poor. Cost of living in Barbados is extremely high. Something that the government, because it's so disconnected, doesn't feel. You know, I believe MPs, when they pass through their offices and constituencies, may hear about it. That if they do, but the approach seems to be to distract persons with various activities. But the cost of living isn't covered out. So you had a jolly good time at whatever event, but you still have to work and live for the next few days and weeks. But you're not able to do that, far less afford housing. So it is difficult on many middle income families, because you many of them will complain about not qualifying for various bits of government assistance because they may be just above a particular bracket, but then not enough to get through on their own. So they're that forgotten group somewhat, you know. And many also, yes, struggle with providing things for their children, with meeting their various obligations.
What I'm hearing from you is that the government is not protecting people who are vulnerable, who are less well off in this country. And we have a lot of people who are not well off. That's the reality.
Yeah.
And
And
is the government protecting them?
The numbers in that category has increased. So, you know, those at the top, you know, top 1%, 5%.
So Elvis, if the numbers are increasing, doesn't government have an increasing responsibility to offer protection?
Yes.
Obligated.
Yeah. Is that so? Can we look at Barbadians tonight and say, look, government has an obligation to protect?
Well,
Can
we can say that the Democratic
Is
Labour
that
Party,
or
we can say that the Democratic Labour Party has always served the people, and we will continue to serve the persons by what we think is important and what has always been important to people. As I said before, shelter, housing is a basic fundamental human right. And if we as a government, when an incoming government, we have to look at how we can make the process easier for young persons. Many times when we think about housing, I tend to think about a particular bracket. But we also have to remember a mortgage, usually about 20 to 30 years. We have to get to the point where we have to begin to start thinking of young persons owning property, 20-year-olds, 25-year-olds, 30-year-olds, because by the time they get a mortgage, it'll be easier for them to be able to work within that. So we're not seeing young people being able to do that. How many young persons we know in our societies are able to get a mortgage at that age, which is something that we don't do and we don't encourage. And what we're seeing now with a government that does not care about housing, we will see a generation that is coming may not have access to property. And this is what our comrade is saying here. This is what our comrade Dr. Dawn Marie Armstrong said last week, that borderline homelessness, it's going to be generational. Because if we can't afford it in our era, what do we leave for the generation that's coming? And I don't think the government is thinking about that, because if we're seeing that the increase in how much you're going to spend for a mortgage, and our young persons can't afford it, your parents can't afford it, far less for you. So what does that say? We'll have a generation that will not have access to a piece of the rock. And it is not fair. It is their birthright before anyone else. It is their birthright to have part of the rock. And what hurts me even more is that we're seeing a former minister who probably is a homeowner sitting with other persons that may not have access to that kind of privilege, having a drink because he does not care, because he's a homeowner. most of our cabinet ministers are probably homeowners. And I think it's such a privilege that every person that we know, one of the things that reasons why we work is to own a home.
Yes.
No matter how small or big it is, it's still our
We don't
home.
want to be rich.
We just want a little house.
We don't want to be rich.
That's all we want as Caribbean people, as
Comfort.
Bajans. That's all we want, a little home to say, well, our children, our families can come. And if we don't have that, it tells us something about how the government sees us. That, that's a privilege.
Mhm.
It's not a right. It's a privilege to own property in your own country.
Now, something has struck me from the discussion. What we are hearing from you is that the government has mainly withdrawn from the area of housing, and the government has sent it off to the private sector. Does not the government have a continual responsibility? You're talking about owning a home.
Yes.
Does not the government have a continual responsibility, having regard to our history? Because we are coming from nothing. We are coming literally from the field. Does not government have a responsibility to enfranchise people in this system where if you don't have money, if you're not wealthy, or if you're not semi-wealthy, you're not going to own anything. And that's why government always participated. That's why the NHC was set up. That's why
Yes,
so
yes, of
passionately about
course.
it. So should not government continue its participation in the economy? Unlike this government, which has withdrawn, which withdrew NHC and placed Hope there because Hope was a private company. They call it public-private sector partnership. And I said, that's no public sector thing. Those were private people. And the monies went wherever they went.
Yeah.
They didn't go into any government thing. So should our philosophy be one in which a government must participate in economic activity as a means of enfranchising people who otherwise could not be enfranchised?
Yeah, I totally agree.
I agree as well. As you said, given our history, I think what we have is a situation where, as government looks to manage the affairs of the country, you're dealing with a lot of different things. You have to multitask.
Yeah.
That, in fact, we were told many hands make light work, and that was part of the justification for the largest cabinet in the history
Correct.
of our country.
Yeah. 25, 26.
But many hands have made a mess. Right? Many hands have made a mess. And honestly, from my vantage point, there also seems to be a prioritizing of how we appear internationally. And yes, that has to be one aspect of a government's mandate. You're dealing with local issues, you're dealing with regional issues, you're dealing with international issues. The priority seems to be how we look internationally. Even the borrowing of money to prop up our foreign reserves and have that record levels is about how so it's projected a particular image. You want Barbados to be the Dubai of the Caribbean. It's all that. And in the process of trying to project that image, the man on the street is forgotten. They're forgotten. They've forgotten that people, we actually voted for you to look after our interests first and foremost. Trickle down economics, macroeconomic indicators look really good, but trickle down, it doesn't work. It doesn't work.
It's a very trickling.
It's a trickling. It does not work. So that
sometimes it evaporates before it trickles.
International priority, it's all well and good if you were actually, while doing that, if you were actually taking care of local interests and concerns. But we see a government that is disconnected with what many average Barbadians are going through, while we maintain, some international appeal or projection image. But it's classic champagne taste, Bobby pocket.
Felicia is a farmer, you don't mind me.
Yeah, sure.
The public,
of course.
And I want to shift the discussion slightly. The question of agricultural lands going into housing, not housing for the average fella, housing for people who can afford them. What's your view on the excavation of agricultural lands to build houses?
Well,
is it
there must be a balance.
There must be a balance.
And we have
so
to.
that you're not against it.
No, there must be a balance, because if we look at the demographics of Barbados, we look at in terms of the land structure of Barbados, we will see that the majority of our land is agricultural land, especially when you go to the rural areas, you will see that. However, I think what is very concerning is that you're seeing say for instance, you were taking up the pool lands, which is also agricultural land,
Yes.
and now it's abandoned.
Yes.
And so what happens to that?
Wastage.
No, you
Can't-
can't,
cement
because
is on it.
everything else is on it. So that you have to think about that. And then you're seeing when private entities use the same agricultural land, then it's a very high scale because you're doing villas and you're doing things of that nature. We have concerns, and I really did not want to speak about their agriculture. Every minister we speak about, there is some particular matters that, so when you think about the Minister of Agriculture and what he's been saying, it just everywhere. So I'm just trying to say, well, I'm trying to think that, okay, at least in the agricultural sector, but no, even in the agricultural sector. So you're seeing the disconnection between ensuring that we have adequate food security in Barbados, and we're not seeing that. We're not seeing the encouragement of it. So you're using agricultural lands for housing at a disadvantage of food security, but at the same time, the housing is not being done. And so, it's just a mismanagement of government. It's an incompetent government. It's a government that it seems that they all got together for the right reasons, because they're so similar in their behaviors. They're so similar in the kinds of ways that they manage the ministries, that I'm still trying to think of one ministry that I can say, well, at least they're trying. And it's so every ministry that we've been, we were talking about housing, but even in agriculture, we will see the deficiencies, the mismanagement, and then they come on television and they come in the public, they come on the news and the media, and they tell us some, news that it does not connect, because we see it for ourselves. We have citizens, we have the lived experiences. People in the communities, we see it. People in Pool every day, they see it. They see what is happening in terms of agriculture in those areas, in St. James North, in St. George South, in all of those areas. We can see what is happening to our agricultural land. We can see in the next 5 years or so, we will not be able to produce the ways that we should. And that becomes a problem then. But right now, as I said before, and I'm glad that you said that disconnection between the public, because too many of our leaders are in the air. So they're not they're not understanding what is happening on the ground. Because if you're on the ground, then you will see exactly what the suffering of persons, you will see the concerns of people, you will see that people need to share their experiences so that you will be able to intervene on their matters. But if you're on a jet to holiday, nothing beats a jet to holiday, then you will not really understand what the people are going through. And I think it's very important that we see that there's a disconnection between the state and its citizens, and it's widening and it's deepening. And I think at some point, I believe that the government has lost its way a long time ago. A long time ago. And everything else that we're seeing right now, and you speak about the large cabinet and everything, that's why you probably see all of them resigning and everything. The reality is that they have lost their connection with people, and the only way that they could connect with them is merrymaking and not deal with the real issues. And so you're seeing what is happening in schools. It's a deep reflection of the ministry. It's a deep reflection of the leadership of this country. And if we have
moral tone.
Yeah, it is that they have lost the sense to serve the people. And I think that's relevant to that.
Listening to Felicia here, and I like how she puts it, that you need that balance between agriculture and housing, concrete. So that if we agree in the event that we agree that we need to preserve some of our agricultural tracts of land, it is obvious then that we will have to redesign or establish housing communities. And I want to hear from you. I want to hear your individual view. Should we be looking at medium to high-rise housing? Everybody's scared of this question.
No, absolutely not. I mean, we have to look at all the options that we have.
If I came to you and said, look, I don't want to call the name of a community, but certain community, there's overcrowding.
Yes.
And overcrowding has spawned crime.
Mhm.
crime is occurring in certain districts
Yes.
for obvious reasons.
Yes.
It's overcrowding.
Yes.
It's not a very, it's socially not a pleasant environment. And that is where crime festers. And if I say to you, look, redesign this housing to become more comfortable for people. And I say to you, look, well, you may have to do like New York, bigger cities,
Yeah.
not necessarily 18 stories, but medium to high rise housing.
Yeah.
Grotto, for example.
Yeah.
You know Grotto?
Yes.
Yeah. What's your view? Should we be? Because we have to make our people comfortable.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
And that's one of the sources of the problem.
As
in
long as we're not
Barbados,
breaching our
No.
planning.
But if we're being honest,
Yeah.
if you're being honest,
Yeah.
everyone in Barbados is not going to be able to own a
Oh.
piece of the rock.
Right.
And as Felicia said, if you're looking for a balance between agriculture and housing,
Mhm.
this is a
You have to
viable,
redesign your housing.
yeah, this is
Yes,
a
yes.
viable, reasonable option for
Mhm.
persons
Mhm.
that can't afford housing at a certain cost.
Mhm.
Now, agriculture is food, is a basic need.
Precisely.
So we need to utilize our lands that we could be able to feed ourselves
And
without having to
Not take
import.
5 acres for a roundabout
Correct.
in the St. George Valley.
So if we focus on trying to find a balance between agriculture and housing,
Mhm.
and try to sustain ourselves fully without having to import, God forbid there's a natural disaster,
You're running away from my question. You know.
is a viable
Medium
option.
to high rise.
Yes,
a viable
I think
option.
we should. I think
You
we
would go
should.
medium to high rise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would, with the condition that we leave decisions as far as approval to our
Yes,
experts.
yes, please.
Well, that's why I identified
Ministers
Grotto.
have gotten
Too hands-on.
involved in too much.
Minister.
Yes, ministers, they're experts in everything.
How high is Grotto? That's four stories, 5.
Yeah, that's
That's
fair.
fine. I think
We need a man about town on this panel.
Yeah, but yeah,
I think it's 5 stories.
It's 5.
we have to look at.
That looks
yeah,
all right to you.
We
Yeah.
can.
And it's very attractive from
Yeah.
the street.
We
Nice
can-
trees, nice parking space.
We can do that. We can, and as I said before, we have to look at all the alternatives for housing for our citizens.
So you can
in-
see Pine, Grisette, Eden Lodge, Silver Hill, Gall Hill, redesign
I think
into.
if I may add to that,
It must be well looked after.
of course, but I think
Engineered.
Yes. Yes.
what I have seen is that when I have gone across Barbados, I see some projects are easily able to be erected and developed and
Mhm.
completed.
Mhm.
So I passed through the Newton where they have the new building and
You mean the thing that looks like
yes,
Snuffleupagus?
and yes, and
You know,
it's interesting
Yes,
that the majority of land that has been used for it,
Yeah.
and it tells me that
You mean the wooden thing?
yes, not only that, because it's the entire estate that is being
Yeah.
used
Yeah.
for housing, not for housing, sorry,
It's a
but for
theater.
that a theater and everything else. And we can't get these things done. We can't do the same processes. We can't get it quickly done. We have a climate school and how quickly that was
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
And so the reality is that the priorities of the government, when it's something to do globally and put it on a scale and mask about it, look fancy. So we're doing that. It is completed. But when it comes to the basic needs of people, and it tells us about the priorities. So we do have the land spaces
Mhm.
to build houses and affordable houses for our families
Outside of the agriculture.
outside. But the
area.
problem is that we have persons within the government that do not care enough. They
Or
do
don't
not care.
vote.
Well, they do not care enough because after what I saw in Poole, I mean, you have a housing structure and you've seen so many families. And in the report, it tells you it's some of them had to be demolished because of the structural damage that
You
was
know,
being done
potatoes
to
used
it.
to grow on that whole land.
Yeah, it's a good
St. John
it's
Percival
good
Road.
land. It's good land.
The
Yeah.
fertilizer, yeah.
And so when you find those kinds of incidents, I think it's important that we look at, and we have to have, and if it slips my mind, we need to have legislation where ministers can be held accountable. We don't have that.
Well,
So when we have
the prevention of corruption.
well, we have to, because when you have such reports and we have the evidence, We cannot have persons going into public life and doing those kinds of unethical and illegal, in some cases illegal, because there's so many breaches and they're not being held
Let's say
accountable.
breach of duty.
Of public duty, but there are also structural breaches and other breaches that we need to look at. I think it's very important that they need to have reprimand of public officials, and I think it's very important that it's done, because you will find citizens, and that's why I'm saying that there's a level of empathy, because they believe, okay, well, he did that, nothing is going to come out of it. And we've seen it before. We're seeing where cases where ministers have done unethical practices and there's no reprimand. There's no reprimand. In other words, case closed. So, and just move on. And so we need to have accountability. We need to have transparency, and it's important to do that.
And when I was talking medium to high rise, we mentioned Grotto. There's also London Board. That's about 4 or 5 stories.
No, I think 3.
3? No, it's more than 3. Somebody's going to write it down.
Yeah,
I think London
probably
Board
40
is about
months.
4.
Yeah.
And corner of Passage Road, Country Road, that's about 3 or 4 as well.
Yeah.
So that there is precedent for
Yes, there is.
medium.
Leave it to the experts, leave it to the technical person.
Because the experts did those. People seem to live out there, live quite comfortably.
Yeah.
Yes.
But the other areas that are in physical decay, that's the proposal, that they should be redesigned, and people who are less well off should be given an opportunity to live in dignified circumstances. And this government has paid absolutely no attention to that class of person.
It has different priorities. As I said, the priority is international image and appeal. And yes, you do have to look at, your international image, etc. But persons are struggling. So many persons over the last week had a difficult time getting their supplies and so on for their children to go back to school.
And Elvis,
But we gone over budget like Leon Carifesta, whatever the budget was.
we had a minister this week admitting that they don't know how much they spend on Carifesta. So we're not here criticizing Carifesta. But there's a basic rule in government that if you have a project, you budget for that. You say, I voted X amount of money. Here's a minister admitting this week, oh, we haven't finished counting the money yet.
Cost is coming soon.
The cost is coming soon. That is a reversal of how government spends its money. Government budgets, you give an estimate of costs, and if you overrun that cost, you go back to Parliament and ask for an increase. But here's a minister saying, we spent money on Carifesta.
It's the same minister that was responsible for the archives, right? Okay, so
I mean, it's a reversal of all.
it's a pattern of behavior. It's a pattern of behavior.
And
So we shouldn't be surprised.
People in Barbados have to pay the bill.
Yeah.
Precisely.
The
It's
people
Correct.
in Barbados have to
Yeah.
pay the
That's
bill
money.
while
Yeah.
struggling to get children to school,
Yes.
while struggling to eat.
And the government congratulates
Barbados
itself
have
for
to
Karen
pay.
Roberts' triumph of a Carifesta that apparently was well executed. I'm told. I mean,
Yeah.
all everything
Mhm.
I'm told was executed well. But a week later, we as politicians, people are breaking down our doors asking to help the children.
With regards to execution, there certainly were some issues early on and some through. So, but in the end, it came together. But there were issues.
Together.
There were definitely issues.
The
And
thing at Newton, they had anything there,
Yes, they did.
yes, there were
and
events.
I
We find
understand people got wet or something. It was a wooden frame, it's plastic.
Yeah,
bites
it
on
looked
top
very
or something.
open. Yeah. It seems like something that's still under construction.
It was rushed.
I'm sorry to
It was
have
rushed.
that.
It was rushed. It's difficult to tell. It's difficult to tell. I passed there from time to time, and I was like, "What are they doing?"
Yeah.
It's difficult to tell.
When I was young, I used to watch Sesame Street, and I said, "This thing looks like Snuffleupagus." This monstrous thing in 2 areas at this. Snuffleupagus without hair with plastic bag.
I think coming from a poor background, I don't do spending with reckless abandon.
No.
Like if there's no tomorrow,
Mhm.
I can't do that.
The
Mhm.
discipline
You're
is
always
built
thinking
in.
about
Yeah.
pinching,
That's right.
balancing,
That's right.
making sure you don't overreach, you don't
Mhm.
stretch.
Mhm.
I can't make
all being
comments like
disciplined.
I remember attending a ministry of education at the time, town hall meeting when they were looking at reimagining education, talking about junior college of excellence, senior college of excellence. And I remember, you know, when one of the, I spoke and some others spoke, and a question was asked, how much will these proposals cost? And the response from senior ministry official at the time was, we don't know how much it will cost to do all of this, but it'll be good then. Do that. How do you do that? Who building a house doesn't first, before they start to build, count the cost, check, make sure you have everything. Can we do this within budget? You have a budget. I can't do that. This government just spends, and whatever the bill is, we'll find the money from somewhere.
That's what the minister said.
They'll find the money from
We
us.
spend it, let us count it, and we can come back and tell you. And we have to live with that.
And I think what you said, colleague, is that you have the discipline when it comes to your humble background, like we all do, but it's not their money. So there's a different dynamics to it. So it's not their money. So they seem not to have that care how hard people, citizens work and ensure that, okay, we pay our taxes, we ensure that we pay our taxes, but the returns, we're not getting much from it. We're overly taxed. If you think about the number of new taxes that have been added to us as citizens, so much out of pocket for us. And I think it's important that we see that. This is a government that does not really put people first. It does not care the hardship that people are going through. As long as they're able to satisfy their own egos, as long as they satisfy their own needs, I think that's what we need to really look at. The individuals, because they're the ones governing us. And when you look at the individuals and their behavior, it tells us quite a lot about the character. And
they're
character.
living very comfortably. Well,
of course.
They're living comfortably. Their consultants are living comfortably. They have all manner of consultants, and people are out here struggling.
Yes.
Yeah.
We have our situation now. When we look at our total national debt population and just do a basic calculation, debt per capita, you know, each Barbadian has on their shoulders over $50,000
Of course.
in debt.
Yes.
Each Barbadian,
Yes.
including persons that don't even make $20,000 a year.
Correct.
Right. So those are things that I think about, so that, you know, I do believe in careful spending.
They want us to go to the board. Before we stop
Queen
at
K.
Esther Blue,
You can read Queen
Yeah.
K.
Queen K. You want me to read that one?
I agree. Queen K says there are very few independent individuals in this small society. Independent is relative.
Yeah. We go to Esther Blue next.
All right, the public need to be more active in their communities, business. They should be advocates for their livelihood.
We have another one.
Queen K, who sits on the interview committee and panel for the Auditor General, by the way?
Wait, do we have a new Auditor General?
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
No, we
There
don't.
was an ad
And
posted.
they have an ad. There's
Yeah.
a gentleman on Facebook, very decent man. And he has posted twice, and he's insisting that the government appoint an Auditor General.
Yeah.
And they're not appointing one. And the post of Auditor General is pretty good, because it is the Auditor General that does the accounting of
Checks and
government spending,
balances.
And
so that you cannot government
It's critical
It is-
if you want government spending actually accounted
Precisely,
for.
Precisely.
If you want to keep operating like has happened with so many projects, including the funding of Carifest
Carifest,
recently,
yeah.
then you don't want an Auditor General.
What's the figure you're hearing now for Carifest? Not what you know. What are you hearing? It is blowing in the wind, as one singer say.
Certainly 10 plus million, 10 million.
more than
10
that,
million?
probably more than
10
that.
million?
10 plus.
Oh,
Yeah.
10 plus. What are
The
you hearing?
initial
What are you
figure in
hearing?
the estimate was 4 million. So God knows
4
how much.
million?
Yeah, that's the initial cost.
How much is it there, Newton?
Probably 3.
That's a lot of
Unfortunate.
money.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
Mhm.
And then the thing at up by Combermere
Mhm.
village.
The
Yeah.
village.
And I can say that I think the land is not owned by government.
But they're trying
The
to
government
acquire it.
is about to purchase the land. That's what I'm hearing. So
Yeah.
that adds to the cost.
Well, the same day that Dwight Sutherland resigned, there
That
was
he did what?
sorry, the same day that Dwight Sutherland was fired,
Yeah.
there was an announcement on the radio
Mhm.
that the government was looking to acquire the lands that Carifesta Village.
Yes,
Took place.
that's correct.
Is it
Yeah.
to build houses?
No, they're keeping
To
the
keep it,
market
yeah,
there.
to keep
Okay.
it.
So that adds to the cost. And that is pretty expensive
4
land.
acres.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now you can call it, the owner can say, look, this is commercial land. This is no longer agricultural land, which is cheaper. So he can demand a value at commercial value.
Correct. And
Which
that
will happen.
area is where most of the party and effects are
Precisely.
held.
Just
Around
across,
Stopover,
just
yeah.
across Botanical Gardens.
Botanical Gardens.
Yeah, and on the same side as well.
And then what's that?
Oh, by
the
the-
stadium. They do entertainment there.
By the stadium?
That's been going up. That started.
I don't think so.
Well, Minister Griffith said that they were starting sometime soon.
We shouldn't believe anything he said.
So what's
either.
going on the ground? They pushed it off.
I know
already.
they've demolished.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they,
they
they, yeah,
demolished
they
it.
demolished it.
Oh. Well, perhaps the Chinese are building it coming up from
We shall see.
China.
Maybe we shall pay a visit.
We should take the LPTV there
Yeah.
actually and see what's happening. On the question of sports, because we're still on housing and communities generally. This fencing around, I've discussed it before and I want to discuss it again.
Mhm.
Why do you think the government fenced around the recreational areas in neighborhoods? Why did it seem so irrational? You go to the United States, New York, and you see these mini stadia, the track, the football fields,
It's not
Mhm.
fenced.
and it's not fenced.
They're all open.
You can walk. I mean, why has our government fenced these communities?
To keep
up
the
to
people out of it.
This is something that you
Keep
always.
people in or keep people out?
Or put money in somebody's
Yes.
pocket.
I was
I
about
think
to
so.
say.
Or some facts.
A lot of
Mm.
money. Yeah, somebody's pocket.
So I would assume the DLP government will remove the fencing. We
Yeah,
should
that's-
remove
that's
it.
another part.
Oh, yeah.
We have to
No,
remove the
yeah,
fencing.
we have to take them.
And I think it's also it's almost like when you put up walls, you're telling
Precisely.
it's also a
Precisely.
mental
It's-
block
it's
to
like
tell
mental.
people that.
Stay out.
And I've seen
Yeah.
it before. It's only when you brought it up I noticed that, because if you're in a community, you want a space where everyone,
It's
space.
welcome.
it doesn't matter who you are. If I just want to sit on, and just kick some balls with my
There
sons,
is- there
I
is-
should be able to do
There
that.
is no activity more pleasant than cricket on Saturday. afternoons. I know
Cricket.
you don't agree with it.
No, I'm not saying, but it could be. It should not be in a space where it is fenced. And if it is
Precisely.
fenced, it tells me that I'm only allowed at certain times. I should be granted permission. I should have authorization. So it also speaks to the constituents. It speaks to the community. That only certain of us are allowed in. And if it's locked, it's locked. The minute you put a lock on it and you fence it up, it tells you how you feel about me. And I think people need to recognize what the government is saying to them, that I don't feel that you deserve to be on that nice grass that we put there. It's
Few
only
weeks
so
ago, I watched cricket at Minnesota. Sheffield, you know the Sheffield
Yeah,
ground?
St. George.
Can you imagine a fence around the Sheffield ground?
Too
I mean,
small. It's like a
well,
10-cent piece.
yeah,
Yeah,
but
too
it's
small.
not that small when you get there. 'Cause
Mhm.
You could hit a decent six out there and call it a decent six.
Mhm.
But I was there sitting, and part of the charm of these grounds, like the Babel ground,
Mhm.
right in the middle of a
Oval.
community, and I'm saying they probably need a netting to stop the ball hitting people's
Mhm.
windows and
Yeah.
so many
Yeah.
people say not to mind.
no.
YMPC, they say
Yeah.
not to mind
Yeah.
because they're integrated with
Oh, the family,
Community.
yeah,
If you-
the
if you
community.
look at the number of them that have been fenced around,
to
the
get
amount of money that has been
oh,
spent fenced
costs a
around,
lot of money.
while community centers are in a terrible state of disrepair.
Precisely.
Money that could have been spent on community
But you know what,
centers.
Elvis? They fence them in, and fewer people are going on them.
They can't because it's locked.
Precisely.
They lock the
They
they
do
lock.
one in St. Lucie as well. coming
Yeah,
down from
it's
the
locked.
parish
It's
church.
locked.
They
Yeah.
fence that as well.
Yeah,
It's
it's
locked.
fenced.
It's
Yeah.
locked. And it
Keep it
tells
open.
you keep out your own people.
And I think somebody said in Parliament one day, and he let the cat out the bag. He said, "Look, give people a chance to make money," which tells me that the effects would be moving in to the
Eventually.
communities. Yeah,
Yeah,
and
that
people
was
would-
my initial thinking.
I always felt so.
Mhm.
That the people in the communities who could walk on and watch the cricket and watch the football, that one night they would have to come, go by the gate, pay some money, and go see somebody.
Correct. Because when you see the
jumping
fence,
up.
it seems so unwelcoming. It's
Yes, it is.
yeah, and
You associate a fence with that.
yeah,
so
they
far.
get varied out.
Relation
And then we
camps as well.
wonder why the community centers are empty.
Precisely.
And why no one is coming out on evenings,
Terrible mistake.
playing cricket, playing
Yeah.
football, playing road tennis,
Yeah.
etc. The activities in the communities are basically non-existent,
But-
and it could be linked to the fences.
Again, it tells you about the connection between the state and citizens. They're disconnected with the people, because if you were connected, you would have known that the people need to be in a community. And it's very interesting. I was in Tate Hill, and in St. George, and one of the constituents told me that usually in those communities, people want to stay in the community, especially if the levels of crime, they do not want to go so far out. And when you start fencing up, community centers and things of that nature, you depriving the community members of having it. But I think
the comment states, "Low, are Bajans taking up the sport of fencing?"
Yeah, but
it's more sober.
Offenses keep out.
It is, and it's unfortunate. It is unfortunate how the government sees citizens and constituents. I think the fencing is really for them. They should be in the fencing. The way they've been treating citizens, I think citizens need to put them in the fence at some point. Yes, and make them, because
that's the government that you should treat us bad.
exactly, because I think that's that's where it's heading. That they seem to be this far off. The connection is widening, and you're seeing it in different representation.
Yeah.
So you're seeing the fencing, you're seeing this dialogue, the stage public meeting. I mean, Paris speak meetings. That it's deepening and it's deepening, and it's frightening at the same time, because once the public feel a sense of distrust, then it will get to the point where the government may not be able to no longer articulate or speak to the public. And what is happening now is that you're going to try to infringe draconian laws on your citizens to control them. And
where it happened.
You wanted to read one of them.
Yeah, there's a comment from Stephen Strickland. To give a contract, it's a safety and health concern. There are only 2 entrances open during activities, so if something happens, people and children will be trampled or killed. Expensive to maintain.
Thank you, Stephen.
I remember, that he said that. I remember when you have fire drills at school, the pasture was normally the place to run.
Yes,
so
precisely.
In communities, if you have a major fire, an open pasture would be the best bet.
We never thought
but
of
that.
But
no, you can't do that.
He says, we're talking housing, and Jonathan B says they're treating it like private property.
It is.
We're talking housing and we're talking aesthetic. I drive around and I really lament the decay of the traditional Barbadian chattel house. So I take pictures of them. It's a really nice one today. Are we concerned as citizens that our topography, that aesthetic, that old Barbadian traditional gable roof chattel house is disappearing? Is this something we should feel strongly about? I know you're a far younger panel, and sometimes you're not.
So for me, the emotional connection to these homes
not there.
It does not exist.
There with you.
Yeah, it does not exist.
But you're the young person on this panel, so
yeah. So growing up, for me, I would have seen what we've seen now, actually, a wall structure.
Is it? Oh, so you're not really
in my community? I've never seen a chattel house in my community.
Really, gable roof, two gables,
never.
Jealousy windows.
Nope.
And I saw one today with the glass. The jealousy wooden is outside, and when you open that, there's a glass behind it.
I've never seen it.
And when I see that, Melissa, I think of the workmanship. I think of the old workmen who sat. They didn't have any electrical tool, and they cut everything by hand, and everything was precise. And the jealousy windows used to open up, the louvers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it used to open up and stay like that on its own weight, so that the technology that these men practice was
but
perfect.
what I would say about them,
for me, it means something
from an engineering perspective.
Brilliant.
How these houses were built.
Yes.
They stood the test of time when it comes to hurricanes.
Precisely.
That's what
hurricane and flood.
Yeah. So I saw a Bajan, I can't remember her name, but she did a talk on TED.
What's that? TED?
TED, yeah, TED. This is a show where you go on and do a presentation.
It's from America.
Yeah. Okay. She's a Bajan. She did a TED show on these same houses, and she did
On
it.
the Bajan Chattel
Yeah,
House?
yeah, she did it from an engineering perspective,
Mhm.
and
What did she say?
she showed you how the wind actually blows
Yes.
on the
It's
on the
hurricane
windows.
resistant.
Yeah, it's hurricane
Yeah,
resistant,
yeah,
and
it
she's
is.
actually saying that we should go back to this
People have said
method
that for a
of
long time.
engineering when it comes
Precisely.
to the
It is
Caribbean.
safer
Yeah,
housing.
yeah.
And for those like me, a little older,
Mhm.
there's a certain aesthetic, there's a certain beauty in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
that
we
you
like
crave
houses
for.
now with concrete roofs.
Oh,
that are
concrete
flat.
roof.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm seeing a lot of those.
Mm.
Elvis, the old Bajan aesthetic, the gable
I
roof.
like Chapel Houses. I mean, I grew up in one. I
So
grew up
did
in
I.
one. So,
So
you know,
did I.
there's
These young people don't know.
Hey, I know about you. I grew up in a child house too, and it's a Caribbean thing as well. And I think that's what we call indigenous knowledge.
Felicia, I had this
That
great idea once. Sorry to cross you. This great idea once that you could have a whole building estate of chattel houses, and that would be so pretty.
But-
And young couples, young families. I mean, you make it more comfortable, obviously. A little bigger, indoor plumbing,
of course,
and I thought that would be so.
as
beautiful.
long as the former minister is not the minister of housing, it can happen. It could work because we know he's not going to complete any.
Well, I
any
would put the case for that architecture.
And yes,
idea.
and I think indigenous knowledge is very important. Our cultural knowledge is important. That very much what you're saying, that we have it.
Mhm.
We have that knowledge, but we seem to want to appreciate other styles of knowledge, other ways of doing things that has worked for us. It has been pragmatic for us. Perhaps we may not have understood why our older folk
parents,
did
yeah.
what they did. They had a science behind
Oh,
it.
yes, they
And I
did.
think that's what we need to look at as well. It's very important that our indigenous knowledge is preserved in a
Precisely.
way.
That's
So
precisely the point.
what we're seeing persons from outside come in and tell us what we ought to do when we know what we have to do. So the imports of, and I'm not saying that we shouldn't have had persons from other societies come and help us, but the import of other cultures to tell us, that this is what is better for us, and we should have, these little huts that they're trying, these chicken
Well,
coops that they
I
have
hate
in.
to criticize another man's design. but the
No,
houses at
no,
Lancaster.
I'm talking about the incomplete ones.
Oh.
What has happened there, and not ensuring that it is completed. And it, as I said before, every time we pass by pool, it reminds me of this government.
By who?
The
Same
pool
one,
development,
yeah.
it reminds me of this government. It looks like a very incomplete, not functional, in some places disastrous. So it's a reflection of them, and the government itself. And it doesn't have any roof. So it tells us about the leadership on the head.
Yeah.
So there's no
Exposed.
head, it's exposed.
To the elements.
So it's them. This is who they are. It
like that.
represents who they are. And that's probably why he was having that drink, because he did show a representation of his
Who
government.
said he had a drink?
He had a drink.
Oh, drink.
So it shows. So it's a representation of their government. This is what they represent.
You're making an interesting point. And somebody said you've had 4 housing ministers and
7 years.
We're on it for.
Yeah.
You're on the 4th. What does that say? 4 housing ministers.
How
So
many education ministers?
5.
5 education ministers.
Yes.
Well, we'll come back to education next week, but housing. So is that reflective of failure?
Of
Very.
course. Yeah.
They started making lofty promises. The idea of 10,000 houses in, what was it, 5
5 years.
5 years.
4,000 a year.
Yeah.
I mean,
Where though?
really? Well, where they are?
No, where
Where
were
were they going to put them? I have no idea. They would have to tell you.
Just call the numbers.
And how many have they done? Senator Walters mentioned somewhere maybe just under 1,600
Yeah.
in over 3 years.
The
How are you
government
going
or
to
private?
government? How are you going to build the remaining 8,500 in a year and a half?
Year and a half.
How are you going to do that?
But he said he was going to build 1,300 by the end of this year. How many more
And 2
months?
days later, he
Yeah.
was fired. I mean, and he spoke so confidently.
Mhm.
I remember that. We're going to do 1,300 houses in
Yes, it's
in
voice
Vineyard.
over.
By the end of the year. Mhm.
It leads me to an allied question. I started to feel mischievous.
And we
By the end of
encouraged
the
you.
year, were they preparing for another event in which we are all interested?
Are you speaking about elections?
Yes.
Perhaps. The GIS sent out a notice to all Barbadians
Yes, we heard it.
letting us know that officials from the postal service
Mhm.
would come around to your homes, asking certain questions,
Yes.
and you have to let them know if you are turning 18 by December.
Mhm.
Why December?
Oh, yeah. Well,
So-
that's when the enumeration
Correct. So
period ends,
Mhm.
if you're,
which
asked-
means,
yeah,
yeah, that's the cutoff point.
correct,
Let's see. So
So-
that they're preparing for an election.
possible,
Barbadians need to know
early
this.
next year.
But if they live by the Constitution, how far can they go?
2027.
2027.
Which month?
Right.
February.
So
Parliament
how-
constituted. Yeah,
how do
February.
we as citizens explain this government's eagerness for an election in every cycle? Why can't they take the 5
Because
years?
they're
What
restless.
what is it? I use the word ambush. Why would a government need?
Because they think it's to their political advantage to call election at a particular point in time. As that's the current situation where a prime minister can wake up any morning and decide he or she wants to call an election. And that's something that needs to be
Addressed.
looked at.
Mhm.
And while you're there, look at campaign funding, campaign financing. Yeah, they think it's their political advantage.
But should this be you for fixed terms, aren't you?
Yes, I am.
Mhm.
I'm also for something that may be a little controversial as far as
Sure you want to say.
limiting prime minister's powers. So yeah, I'm not going to go there. But I'm more in favor of fixed.
I ask that because it seems that every policy initiative is then related to an
To
election.
an election.
Yeah.
You can't do anything unless you're preparing for an election.
Mhm.
You give out $300 down the road in May, was it?
Yeah. St. James
Election.
yeah.
Yeah.
But as you always say, this government does not have the stamina
This
to
precisely.
go through the complete duration
Precisely.
of a term.
Because they're always up to a trick.
Yeah, always.
Yeah.
So
A
we
trick of a
have
transaction or effect.
yeah, so we have 7 years, 2 terms, and they're looking to move on to
3
third term.
elections in 7 years.
Yeah.
What does that say about the state of a country? That we're not settled. You can never settle. You never get a sense that the government settles into its program and its policy. There's always some ambush. Let us give them this, and perhaps if we give them this at the right time, they're going to vote for us.
Mhm.
You don't get that sense.
Yeah, there is. I think the last time the election was called, there was some kind of controversy to get rid of the then opposition leader Joseph Adderley.
Oh really?
So maybe this is a
Let me
gimmick
get
to
rid of it.
get rid of an opposition.
Right.
Yeah,
right,
so-
right. And they succeeded.
Yes, they did. So this is probably their another gimmick by them to try to get rid of any opposing voices in the House. But the Democratic Labour Party is ready,
Yes.
and
Well said, Melissa.
yeah, and we are ready to fight on behalf of the people, and we will be back
Strong.
stronger than ever before. Not
Yes.
just one voice, but plenty more.
Plenty voices. Good candidates.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yes. Excellent candidates. 3 minutes to 9. We began on housing. We're going to close on housing. The new housing minister then, Melissa,
Mhm.
if your prediction and Elvis's are, if y'all are correct, it seems if this government is rushing toward an election.
Mhm.
But you accept the resignation, they say,
Mhm.
of a housing minister. And this housing minister has how many months then? About 4 months? If they're going to call the election soon, what housing program is he talking about?
Well, the one
see,
that was
they always
just
stick with
fired,
people.
yeah, the one that was just fired promised that he was still going to achieve 1,300
By
by
December?
the end of the year. So maybe this current minister is trying to achieve the same thing. I don't
He
know.
will build 1,300 houses
Or
and then
maybe we would, the
take us into an
persons that
election.
are on the right to own program will miraculously get their title deeds before the next
Mhm.
election.
If you look at some of the new minister's statements, they are quite condemnatory of the previous minister.
What did he say?
Previous
Remind me.
ministers.
He's going to stop.
We're going to look at programs and see what we can realistically offer. I'm not going to make lofty promises.
Oh,
Barbadians want this ministry to give them good service. Just acknowledging they
Did they not
weren't
have
getting
before?
good service
yeah.
before. One of the earliest priorities will be improving transparency in the allocation of homes.
Okay.
Really?
Mhm.
He actually said that.
He understands
So
the
he's-
condemnation.
His statements were condemnatory.
Repeat that one for me.
One of his earliest priorities will be improving transparency in the allocation of homes.
Mhm.
People want to know where they are on the list.
On the list.
So there was no transparency
Before,
in
no.
the allocation.
No, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
And the ministry wasn't giving the public good service
Okay.
because Barbadians want the
This man
ministry to
was
give
fired.
them,
This man was
and
fired.
he's not going to make lofty promises.
That's interesting. Let's look at Dwight Sutherland then. We started on him. Let's go back to him.
Mhm.
And I provoke y'all by calling him a victim. He's no victim.
No, he's not.
He's complicit in all the infelicity. Let us talk to the people of St. George South. Felicia Dujon.
Yeah.
Is he now a lame duck representative?
He's been a duck. You asked me to be honest. So
I'm sorry.
it's the reality of it. And I think with his presumed resignation, we have clearly seen through the mask. We've seen exactly what has happened, what has transpired. I believe that he may not want to answer to the constituents. I think there's a mixed emotions with the constituents why he ought to resign or whatever reasons that he had. But I think it's important.
Let me cross you. This is a chap who walked around St. George South with his chest puffed up.
It's
Very
well, it's a
arrogant.
duck. That's what ducks do.
Minister Sutherland.
Yeah, of course.
He goes back to them, left the rum shop and so on. That will wear off. And he faces them Monday. Let's say Monday coming. How does he face them? Having puffed up his chest for how many years, Elvis? 7 years?
7.
Minister Sutherland. My question to you, does he go back with similar confidence? He's now only a representative and not a minister. And I'm sorry for crossing you, but I come back to you. Is he going back as a lame duck?
Of course he would, because he's shameless. He does not believe what he did was wrong. He doesn't believe what he has done to the people that have been on the applications for so many years. He does not believe that any of the unethical practices, he doesn't believe that, he believes everything that he did was justified.
Can the people of St. George South feel comfortable going into a polling
I
booth?
don't think that they should be able to trust him. You should not trust an individual that does not have your interests at heart.
And that cannot even explain the true reason for his departure.
And not only cannot explain, but
Refuses.
have not taken accountability
Precisely.
and have not been transparent to his constituents or the people of this country, because it's taxpayers' money that has been mismanaged in this
Mhm.
matter.
60 million plus.
And I think the onus is on him to be a dignified person with integrity. He should have resigned
from the House.
from the House.
I found it very interesting
That
he
he'd-
said
he'd
he
want-
will remain a member.
Of course he would,
of
because he
Parliament.
wants to drink some more beer and whatever. So he would do that. But the reality is that
And he said he remains a member of the party.
the reality is
Yeah.
that he does not believe, as I said before, he does not believe that he
Did it
is a
before.
he hasn't done anything wrong. He doesn't want to take
No moral
accountability.
compass.
He does not want to take accountability for his actions, for his guidance, because he was the minister.
Mhm.
He had to oversee all of those projects,
Yes.
and he's not being transparent, and he's not being even with the glaring evidence here.
Mhm.
He does not believe that he should be held accountable. But I'm saying to the people of St. George South
Yes.
that they should hold him accountable, that they need him to that those funds need to be returned. If not, the persons who applied for those houses, they should have legal ramifications for it. And I think it's very important. What is also significant is that some of those applicants are from his constituency.
Mhm.
How does he respond to that?
But that's the point.
How do you respond to that?
Elvis, if the Prime Minister ambushes Barbadians with an election, and I'm using the term ambush because an election is not due until May, 27th.
2027. Yeah.
Good. So if you call an election now for 3, 4, 5, 6 months, that's an ambush. What is Sutherland's effectiveness in St. George South? What is his value to them? That's why I asked the question, is he a lame duck or does he have some value to the people in St. George South?
I mean, you are supposed to be able to have value to your constituents, even if you are not a minister, because
Precisely.
not every member of parliament
Will be a minister.
will be a
I know
minister.
that.
You're supposed to be able there to represent the interests of your constituents, using as many means, opportunities, options as are available to all members of parliament.
Mhm.
I know traditionally in Barbados, we have looked to representatives to hopefully get a ministry so that you can get jobs in to constituents from within your ministry.
Mhm.
That has been a bit of traditional thinking. But even if you're not a minister, you're because as we said, not every MP, although the PM did try to make every MP a minister in the first term, not every MP can be a minister. So he's supposed to be able to still represent their interests.
Based
Whether
on
he
track
will
record,
do
you
that,
think he can?
so I was about to say whether he will do that is another matter. I mean, when you can oversee, and we say 60 million hope, but let's not forget the steel houses, let's not forget
Yes,
the prefab houses.
correct.
So we're looking at about close to, well, certainly over 90 million.
90 million.
Over 90 million that we know about that is not properly accounted for,
Yes.
where the taxpayers of Barbados, including St. George South, did not get value for the taxes that they pay.
Mhm. Mhm.
And he needs to be held accountable for that. He
Yes.
needs to be held accountable for that.
Do you
That's a
think-
lot
do
of
you-
money.
Do you think his constituents will hold him?
I pray that they do.
Felicia, you
And
want to
all
say
representatives who do not represent the people's interests as their first priority.
precisely? Felicia, you want to say?
Yeah, and I just think that the people deserve better. The
Yeah.
people deserve better representation. They cannot feel that's the only option that they have. Dwight Sutherland cannot be the only option that you have.
Precisely.
You deserve better. You deserve better representation. And the Democratic Labour Party will give you better representation. We've seen what this government has done. We've seen the leadership of this government. We've seen what this MP has done under his supervision, under his authority for housing. And you'd want to ask yourself if you'd want to continue with that kind of behavior,
Mhm.
if you want to continue with that kind of characteristics. Does that MP represent your best interests? And does he represent who you truly are? Or is that the kind of behavior that we want to continue in our society?
Precisely. Ladies and gentlemen,
Mhm.
parting words. Housing Minister, you started out by saying you thought he was fired. You think he was fired. What then must the people in St. George South do? Melissa, you want to go first?
If he was indeed fired. The
Well,
constituents,
what can they do? I mean, next
Yeah.
election.
the constituents of St. George South should really examine the actions of the then Minister of Housing, Dwight Sutherland, and being fired from this ministry, it shows that he failed at the duties that were placed before him. We are all here to serve the constituents with or without a ministry, but was he actually fired because he did something that was not deemed honorable as a minister? So when it comes to voting another representative for St. George South, do you really expect to give your vote to someone that has failed you, not just at a constituency level, but at a national level? You look for someone, you look to give your vote to someone who is worthy of that vote, and look to Democratic Labour Party and the representative that they send to that area and vote for that individual.
Thank you. They call a snap election. Now, what can the people of St. George South do? What logically should they do in terms of voting?
Vote for representation. I mean, across Barbados in general, and I've said this on this show before, we have voted for party, we have, and the MPs, once elected, once they're MPs, represent the interests of a party or a leader ahead of the interests of the constituents. So we have seen that movie before, and I think generally across Barbados constituents, and certainly St. George South, you vote for someone who will represent your interests. You've given someone an opportunity. They have shown that they represent the interests of others. And I would recommend, whoever that our party sends to represent St. George South, that you give them that opportunity. And as part of how I really believe Barbadians need to grow in our politics, we demand higher level of representation. I am not one for you vote for BLP or DLP or any other P, full stop. You vote for representation, right? And you demand representation where you put us as constituents, you put our interests first. Party's interest is supposed to come after.
Yeah.
You put our interests as constituents first, your first priority. And I said it before, you are declared the duly elected representative for the constituency of, not the duly elected representative for the Barbados Labour Party or the Democratic Labour Party.
Or the duly elected minister.
Or the duly elected minister.
Yeah.
Felicia, I'm going to leave the last word with you.
I would have said I would have applauded the MP if he fulfilled his commitment to housing for the constituencies. I would have had no qualms with him going to the rum shop and enjoying himself if he had fulfilled his responsibility as the Minister of Housing for his constituents. But based upon what I have seen, it's very discouraging. It's very unfortunate. And it's disappointing that you would have the opportunity to serve in your best capacity. Not too often we get that opportunity to serve in that way. And very much like what you said, too much is given, much is expected. And I think there is a seriousness of it. And I think the Democratic Labour Party is always taking the people's business very seriously. And I believe that's why we do what we do. That's why we come where we are tonight, to ensure that we continue to serve the people and to hold them accountable, regardless of who it is, to hold them accountable. And what we're seeing a government that has disconnected itself from the people. And once that has happened, we need to sever our relationships with this government.
Thank you. Dwight Sutherland, we find you guilty for having failed the people of St. George South. We find you guilty for having failed the people of Barbados government. We find you guilty for having failed St. George South and the people of Barbados. And I don't think we need to come back and discuss housing. The people have passed judgment. The government is guilty. Dwight Sutherland is guilty. And its failure to properly deliver housing to the people of Barbados who cannot afford it. And while the government is boasting about the construction of several prestigious projects, the people in Barbados, the average person in Barbados, is suffering not only from housing, but cost of living and crime, which has invaded our lives. This government has failed. I want to say thank you to the panel. Thank you to our viewers for watching. We're going to be back on Tuesday. Good night.
Thursday.
Thursday. Tuesday.
Yes.
Thank
Good
you very
night.
much.
God bless.